Hi, jag heter Kendra. Tala lite svenska. So a fun fact about me, I have quite a bit of Swedish in my family, and I am slowly but surely trying to teach myself Swedish, which has been an interesting challenge, in part because I don't know anyone that speaks Swedish. I have very limited practicing opportunities, but also I'm just not great at learning languages. In undergrad, I took 2 Spanish classes. I got through those classes without ever really learning a lick of Spanish. I think the biggest issue that I had in learning Spanish was the amount of vocabulary that I was just getting slapped with, and also how fundamentally different Spanish is grammatically from English. That even as I got the words down, I never really picked up on the grammatical structure. But I want to get better at learning languages, and Swedish is surprisingly close to English in a lot of ways. Combined with the similarities in language and the fact that I actually have Swedish roots, Swedish ancestry, I figured this would be a good gateway language to figure out how does one learn a language. What I wanted to do today was make a language journal. And it would basically be a way for me to, 1, keep track of how much time I'm spending trying to learn the language, because I do have this tendency to start something and then drop it for 6 months and then pick it back up, and then my brain tricks me into thinking I've been working on it this whole time when I really haven't. I also want to give myself little cheat sheets for vocabulary that I am most likely to drop but need. So like pronouns and commonly used phrases like jag heter Kendra, which is I am Kendra. I feel like going through the act of writing those out will help to reinforce that memory, but also as I'm progressing through learning, if I forget a rule, I can kind of go back to it. Because let's be honest, even in English, there are times that I forget how words work. So that's the goal today, is to make a journal, but not just any journal. I want it to be hardback because I know that that will be a little bit tougher and stand up a little bit better. I'm thinking I want to do a 1/4 binding, which is where the spine is a different material than the covers, because I still have some leather left over from the Practical Magic project. I also got this ribbon that kind of looks like a vine that I thought would really fit with the aesthetic that I'm going for. I really want to try to evoke nature and forests and woods, because Swedes are very well known for enjoying nature. For the inside of the journal, I want to do a couple of pages that are going to be kind of my quick reference. Just kind of those quick reference things that if I were in a conversation would be important for me to know and remember, along with the pronunciation. And then the rest of the journal, I want it to be an opportunity for me to make notes to myself if I find something that's really interesting. So a few pages will be kind of set in stone of what they are, and then the rest of it will be just sort of blank journaling pages. The book itself will be the size of a sheet of copy paper folded in half, because that's the material that I have to print on. So it'll be 8.5 tall by 5.5 wide, slightly larger because I always make the covers just a little bit larger than necessary to cover the book. The first thing that we need to do is format the journal, print it out, separate the journal into signatures, fold everything together, poke some holes, and sew it. I'll be using a pretty basic kettle stitch, so there's nothing really unique about how I'm going to do the binding, but I will meet back up with you once that's all done. So let's go to the montage. So in total, I have 14 signatures, 2 of which are blanks. And the reason why they're blanks is because when I go to put the text block in the hardcover. Those blanks will just give me extra support to make sure that this does not ever fall out of the cover. I basically have some tearaway pages and some that will get glued down to something else. It will also provide me a clean space to put my end pages when I get to that point. As of right now, with the way that this was sewn together, the book lays perfectly flat, no matter where you are in the book. It'll be a little bit stiffer as I go through the gluing and the hardback process. So basically what I want to do next is I'm going to break out my trimmer. I'm just going to level out all of these edges. The goal is not to make the pages any smaller, it is simply to make the four edges nice and smooth. I did make sure that I had plenty of margin space, that way I can trim whatever I need to. But it'll probably be like maybe a 1/4 inch off each side at most. So I'm going to do the trimming. I'm going to put this in the book press to sort of flatten out because you can kind of see how it swells in the middle. So I just want this to kind of flatten out. And then I'll go in, I'll glue along the spine just to sort of reinforce. I'll probably go over it with a few layers of glue, and then I'll also do just a fabric backing on the spine. Once that is all down, I will also be gluing on my ribbon, and then it will be time to do the cover. So I'm gonna do all of that off camera, and I will meet you tomorrow to start working on the cover. Okay. Welcome to day 2. I am sick. So this is my book cloth. It's a really nice green. It's kind of a cool tone green, but I think it will pair really nicely with the leather. I've already trimmed my leather down so it fits my spine piece. I've already trimmed my chipboard for my cover pieces. Basically, all I need to do is glue my spine onto the leather piece. I made my leather quite a bit larger than necessary so that I can connect the front covers to the leather and then cover my front and back cover with the book cloth. I'm going to leave about a 10mm space between the spine and the covers. My biggest issue is the same issue that I had with the Practical Magic book when I got this leather. It's really thick. I tried to pare down the edges as best as I could with the tools that I have, but I don't really have any leather working tools. I'm going to play around with it a little bit. I still have some scraps, like small pieces that are not really going to be usable for much of anything that I can kind of play with and see what I can get to work. Trim this down, cover the front and back cover, do the spine, glue everything together, and then bring in the text block. Seems simple enough. Let's get to it. So my cover is together, my text block is all set and ready to be bound in. What I think I want to do before I case this in is actually go in with some watercolor and just tint the four edges, just to give it a little something. I think what I want to do next is go in with this vine and actually kind of mask this area where the leather overlaps the cover, just because I feel like that's such a harsh transition and I want to smooth that down. So we'll start with the foredge. I'll glue the vine down while the foredge is drying, and then we can case this guy in. Let's go. So as I mentioned before, I am sick. And I am very tired. So I am going to go take a nap while my glue dries. Once the glue is dry, I'll be doing my finishing touches. But for you, I'm not gonna make you wait any longer. I'm gonna show you the final result and then we'll come back and chat about it. Here's the final result. Take it away, Cinnamon. Thank you. Okay. if your hair isn't camera ready, a blue synthetic wig will do. Let's talk about this project. So I'll say back circa 2020, I first started trying to teach myself a new language. It didn't go very well. I have this tendency to want to start new things at the same time that I'm busy with a whole bunch of other things. And it's usually at the busiest points in my life that I want to try new things. Because when nothing's going on, I don't want to do anything. I guess that whole object in motion will stay in motion, I took that very literally. It's been kind of hit or miss for right now, because I first started taking up Swedish towards the beginning of this year, I'll say around February. But then the loss of my job kind of threw a wrench into things and I just didn't feel motivated to learn. So I've kind of put it off a lot. I'll also say part of the reason why I put it off was because I told myself I would make a language journal, and I kept on putting off making the language journal. So now I have one less excuse. The other thing for me that was really important about this was this quick sheet. In putting the quick sheet together, it's only these 2 pages. I went back through lessons that I already done that I had forgotten and put some of the really helpful tips just on the quick sheet. I also really wanted, on the side I have a pronunciation guide, because pronunciation is a struggle for me even in English. Like if I read a word in English, that doesn't mean I'm going to say it correctly. Pages themselves are super simple. It has a date a lot on the top so I can kind of keep track of what days I'm learning. Lots of space for me to write in if there were words that I don't want to forget, or phrases, or even if I want to use this as kind of like a diary journal. But then at the bottom I have the most interesting thing that I learned, so I can try to give myself a key takeaway. That way if I'm just sort of flipping back through, especially if I go a while without lessons, I can kind of pick back up a little bit easier than having to basically start over every time. Because I know that the key to learning a new language is consistency and trying to do things every day. I've come to accept that there are not enough hours in my day and enough mental capacity in my brain to do all of the things that people say that you should do every single day. And rather than beat myself up for it or do what a normal person would do and cut back, I'm gonna give myself tools to help me keep up with my own self. Wow, this turned into a therapy session. Let's talk about the construction of this book. So one thing that I want to get more practice with is casing in a book when the cover is built separately from the text block. So generally I am most comfortable with building covers that are attached and built onto the text block. In this case, as you kind of saw, I built the cover completely separate and then cased it in. And in doing that, you have to be, I think, even more particular about measuring and making sure that things are perfectly square and they line up exactly right and you do the things in the right order. Whereas if you're building it on the text block, you have a little bit more wiggle room to kind of adjust because everything is still right there together. So I think I want to practice that a little bit more. The leather is just really, really thick, which in and of itself is fine, but it definitely becomes a little obtrusive. I do really like the vine, and I like how the vine kind of helps hide some of the thickness, at least on the cover, so that the transition from leather to book cloth isn't quite so dramatic. It actually looks quite nice, especially if you're not looking at it up close. I really like this vine bookmark. As I get into the book, I can flip this cleanly over and then it can help me keep my place. I really like these end pages. I've never used these photographic pages before. They've just sort of been taking up space in my paper hoard, but this felt like the best kind of book to use these on. Something I don't really like about this, and I think it comes down to the way that I cased this in. The binding itself is designed to lay completely flat. I think the issue is when I cased it in, basically throwaway pages from the blank signatures at the front and back, I glued those down, and I think they hold the cover too taut to the text block, so it can't open all the way flat. And this might be something that wears out over time. Paper can stretch a little bit over time. It's not something that I'm super concerned with because I don't expect to spend a ton of time using this journal. If this was a regular writing journal or a diary or something, I would be more upset about it, but it's not like I'm doing creative writing or anything. It's really just to take notes on whatever my lessons were that day. But I'm not heartbroken about it. It's still completely functional. It still opens enough that I can use it comfortably. Overall, I'm really happy with this. This is my first time doing a 1/4 case. I think it turned out really pretty. I so love the design of this, and I'm excited to finally have a language journal that I can use and refer back to. Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're down there, you should also tell me what should I make in the future. Let me know. Also, while you're down there, you should subscribe because I make videos every week now. I'm being consistent. It's a wild concept. Yada yada, whatever other YouTubers say, I will see you next week. Bye!